Good afternoon, everybody. We're here with TABC Talks, TABC Teaching Alcohol Laws and Know-How series. These are a series of monthly talks where we give guidance to the industry. The following agency guidance was developed to improve internal and external communications and ensure a more consistent application of the TABC statutes and rules. This guidance reflects appropriate processes, requirements, and interpretations based on the general situations presented herein. The guidance may not apply to every situation. If you have questions about how this applies to your specific circumstances, I would go ahead and contact the local TABC office or the TABC directly. You can always interact with us using the chat feature. As questions come in, I might try to answer them then, or we'll try to answer them at the end of the presentation, but we'll make sure that we do address your comments and questions. If you experience any technical issues, visit Zoom's Help Center at https://support.zoom.ushc. So today's topic is audit readiness for retailers. My name is Mike Kennedy. I'm the audit team lead for Region 5, which is pretty much San Antonio South. And today we'll be going over the different types of audits for retailers that TABC does. So the main topics today are going to be the type of TABC audits for retailers, the general rules for all audits, what to expect for each audit, and common mistakes people make, and tips for an easy audit experience when dealing with TABC auditors, and then we will summarize all the information. So the three types of TABC audits that are conducted on retailers are food and beverage audits, private club audits, and local distributor audits. So the general rules for all audits, most audits begin with a letter from TABC that asks your business to provide certain documents or to set up an appointment for TABC to visit your business. Then there will normally be a follow-up call and or visit. For some of these audits, though, we do just stop by and just begin the audit and talk it over with your employees. All our audits do require you to timely provide accurate documentation. Failure to do so may result in an administrative violation and or your audit being not approved. The general rules for all audits, one of the big things we have now for the consequences of violations is if an auditor discovers a violation by your business, TABC may issue you a warning rather than an administrative sanction if the violation is a minor regulatory issue, it does not impact public safety, was not intentional, and it is your only violation in the past 6 months. We will always consider your violation history and the severity of the current violation to determine the best way for you to regain compliance. If we identify repeat violations of a similar nature within a 2-year period, you may be subject to stricter penalties. So the first audit we're going to discuss right now is the food and beverage audit. This is conducted on permittees who hold a food and beverage certificate. This is a subordinate permit normally, so you will have a primary permit, which is normally a wine and beer retailer's permit or a mixed beverage permit. And so that's the types of permits that would also hold a food and beverage certificate. The purpose of this audit is to verify that your alcohol sales are under 60% of total receipts and that food service is available as long as alcohol service is available. They're typically conducted at random. We are given a list of permittees who have to have one of these audits conducted, and then we'll go out and we'll begin auditing them. Normally, this will be conducted once a year at most. If your business does have a record of violations or complaints filed against it, there is a higher chance of being chosen for one of these audits. So when we go out to your business, what you should be prepared for is that the TABC auditor will inspect your business, inspect the premises. This includes a review of your kitchens to verify that you have adequate materials to make food and beverages, specials that you serve, and other aspects of your food operations. Recently, we just put in a rule that a third party can conduct your food service, and if that is the case in your business, then we know that we will need you to make sure that the third party understands we will need to conduct those. We will need to inspect their food preparation areas if it's a third party. We'll also analyze your business location sales records in order to compare the sales for food, alcohol, and other sales categories. And then finally, we may conduct a depletion analysis using invoices and sales tax records to calculate and analyze food, alcohol, and other sale categories. And once again, this is all just to make sure you fall under that 60% of alcohol sales, or 60% of your total receipts at this location, or 60% are under for alcohol sales. Your business should be ready to provide the auditor with monthly sales records. This is a requirement of holding a food and beverage permit. If a third party is responsible for food service at your location, make sure that they can provide the information for food sales. You will still be responsible, so make sure they are adequately keeping documentation of all their sales. We'll also need the most recent 12 months of alcohol invoices and sales tax reports, and finally the menu. For the most part, the personnel that we need in this case are not going to be that strenuous. Normally a manager or even a team lead of some kind, shift leader, can go ahead and be on hand to help provide us with access to the premises for our inspections, and then just direct the auditor to where the proper records are that we need to review. Normally these are an audit where we will give a letter out at the beginning before we go out, so you will have plenty of time to gather the information and prepare these records. The time it takes to review your records does depend on your record keeping and the size of your business. We've had issues and we've had to go to different groups, wholesalers, distributors, to gather records. And then we've also had people who maintain great records, and it takes a short time. So it just depends on your record keeping. Sometimes the auditor will stay at your location and finalize the audit, or they might go back to the TABC office that they belong to in order to verify the information before providing you with a conclusion to it. So the common mistakes we see here, the big one is always incomplete or missing records. Make sure you have a system in place to keep track of the food and beverage sales at your location. A point of sale system is great, but as long as you're keeping accurate records, receipts, where they track daily sales, that'd be fine. Food service not prepared on premises. You must have a permanent food service facility on the premises. A food truck or other temporary facility is not sufficient. Food must be cooked, assembled, and prepared on site. Serving commercially prepackaged food is not sufficient, so you do have to assemble and prepare your food there at the location. Alcohol sell hours beyond food sell hours. So food service must be maintained while alcohol sales are being conducted. So make sure that you do always have some kind of food entree available if you're going to be serving alcohol. Violations usually result in a warning because they are typically regulatory in nature, so long as you haven't committed any in the preceding 6 months. You will be subject to a follow-up audit and/or visit by an auditor to ensure you have regained and maintained compliance since we have issued that warning. The next audit we're going to discuss is private club audits. These are obviously done on those individuals who hold a private club permit. And the purpose of these is to verify the club's membership information, to determine that they paid the appropriate statutory permit fee, and that they are maintaining and paying for their temporary memberships for their permits, for their club members. TABC will randomly select private clubs to audit. Private club permittees should always be prepared to be audited. The audits typically cover a private club's data from its most recent renewal period. These are normally done by us just visiting your location. We don't necessarily send a letter out in advance. While at your business, the TABC auditor will review your membership information for accuracy. We'll review your temporary membership information for accuracy. We'll review records for proper accounting and management of guests. And we'll compare membership information to issued temporary membership cards. Your business should always be ready to provide us with the membership and guest records. There should either be a physical or an electronic copy. This can include membership applications, membership committee minutes, or the listing of all the temporary members. Bank accounts, we will need to see the bank account for the operating account and for any alcohol replacement accounts. We'll also need to see information regarding alcohol suppliers to determine where you're buying from. And then we'll also need to see your membership agreements that specify any kind of management fees or any lease agreements that you're operating under. The club's management should be available when we're doing these, because we will need to discuss and talk about the membership committee. We will need to look at some membership files, and so that will be a process that normally involves somebody in management. The audit does normally take between 4 to 8 hours. It may take longer depending on the amount of information that must be reviewed, the quality of your records, the record organization, etc. So common mistakes and violations. One of the major issue here is normally that people underreport membership numbers. So if, depending on how you choose to pay for your permit, you normally pay for a set number of members, or you can pay for an unlimited number of members. And so what happens is if you pay for a set number of members, the example here in front of you gives, so you paid for 451 to 650 members to be part of your private club at your renewal period. And so you paid $3,900. We go out and our audit finds that you actually had 651, 652, 700 members. Well, you should have paid actually then $5,100. So now you are delinquent to the agency $1,200. And that's what we're determining when we go out to do these audits. We are just verifying that you are paying the proper renewal fee. The way to avoid this is, of course, number one, to make sure that you are ensuring a proper accounting of memberships upon renewal and paying the corresponding fee. Make sure that you're counting all your members and maintaining those records. Alternatively, instead of paying by membership count, you can choose to pay a set fee starting at $7,000 for the initial permit, and then that fee does go down each time you renew. Eventually, it goes down to $4,000 upon your second and subsequent 2-year renewals. Another issue that people have is they underreport temporary memberships. In this case, keep in mind you will owe the state $3 per temporary membership that was not reported. So make sure you are issuing proper temporary memberships to people if people are coming in and partaking in alcoholic beverages and paying for that service. Additionally, some more violations that can happen: failure to approve preliminary members within 7 days. This can result in a $3 state fee for each preliminary member. Failure to maintain food service. Normally this will be a warning, and then we'll follow up to make sure that you have begun serving food. You do have to have some kind of food service as a private club. No separate account for alcoholic beverage replacement. As part of this, you are required to deposit your alcoholic beverage receipts into a separate bank account. Funds in that separate alcoholic beverage replacement account are for replacing alcoholic beverages at the private club. That's that purpose of that account. At the end of the month or once a month, you can go ahead and you can transfer funds. So if the alcoholic beverage replacement fund has more money in it than you would need, you can transfer that to your operating account or your main bank account. The last audit type here is the local distributor audit. The general information is that this is done by any package store that holds a local distributor permit and sells mixed beverage permittees who are that are subject to this audit. And what we're trying to conduct with this one is to ensure that sales to mixed beverage or private club permittees are conducted in compliance with the code and rules, and to ensure that local distributor stamps are being accounted for per code or rules. Every location that serves these every package store that holds a local distributor permit and sells to mixed beverage permittees has to place an identification stamp on the bottle. These identification stamps are what we will be accounting for in this audit, and that's the primary purpose. Normally, these are done once a year, and there won't be a prior notice. We normally will just walk in and begin the audit. So while at your business, the first thing we'll do is review a sample of your invoices to ensure that they are properly filled out. By being properly filled out, that means that they have the stamp numbers, they have both permittees information, their permit numbers, addresses, names. They have the itemized listing of all the alcohol, how many bottles of each, how many stamps were used, and then, as it says there, the stamp numbers at the bottom. Make sure that the alcoholic beverages were paid for properly. So if they are paying for beer, that of course it follows under cash law, which means that beer has to be paid for prior to or upon delivery. The retailer must pay for liquor per deadline set by credit law provisions. These are if that alcohol is purchased within the 1st through the 15th of the month, it has to be paid for by the 25th. And if it's purchased between the 16th and the end of the month, it has to be paid for by the 10th of the following month, the 10th day of the following month. We will also verify that your stamp log is properly filled out and that your stamps are accounted for. You have to keep your stamp log updated at all times to show the stamps being issued and the stamps that are on hand. A stamp log should reflect the date, the invoice number, the permittee that it was sold to, and then it should have the beginning and ending stamp numbers for that order. then the number of stamps for that order, and then finally, it should have a running balance of stamps on hand. So if you have 50 stamps, you use 5, now it should say that you have 45 stamps available. Documents, your business must provide the auditor with invoice documents, stamp log, the stamps that you have on hand. The auditor will count them and make sure that the numbers are being followed, that you're not skipping around, that you are using them in order, and then he will verify those to your stamp log. They will also need to see bank statements for where payments were deposited, and the auditor will give you a time period while they're out there, and payment information for transactions. This is to verify that information once again for cash and credit law for beer payments or liquor payments. The personnel that need to be ready is any staff that's able to provide the auditor with the necessary documents, invoices, stamp logs, stamps. The audit is unannounced, so you should always make sure that somebody is on site, that they know where it is, or that there's somebody available that they can call and find out where that information is available. This can take anywhere from a couple of hours up to a full day, just depending on the scale of the business, what the condition of the records are, and questions as you take advantage of the opportunity to ask us those questions that you might have. Common mistakes and violations. The first one is, of course, the failure to maintain the stamp log. This is a required log that is required by all local distributor permittees. Once again, should have the date, beginning and ending stamp number, stamp used, invoice number, and balance of stamps remaining. It is also a common violation for people to fail to maintain invoices or put that the proper information on those invoices. Inaccurate stamp balance. If we go and we count your stamps and we realize that some are missing, we will then have to look further into it to determine what happened to those stamps. Where did they go missing? When did they go missing? And that's why we require you to put these from the invoices to the log and then finally the count. Each of these mistakes will likely result in a warning. You can refer back to the regulatory warning system slide for the details at the beginning. However, if it's gratuitous in nature or if it is not your first violation, this could be a case or something that carries a heavier administrative penalty. So, tips for an easy audit experience. One of the common things all of these audits have in common is that they do have records that are required by the code. So you need to make sure you understand what records are required for your business. So for food and beverage, you are required to keep sales tallies of food, alcohol, and other things. For a private club, you're required to keep that membership information in order. And then for a local distributor auditor, you're required to keep invoices and that stamp log. If you plan ahead and make sure that you know what records and reports you're required to produce, then you can ensure that that information is always accurate, complete, and available to us. And so at that time, we can go through any supporting documentation to make sure that you have complied with us fully and that you are maintaining compliance with all the alcoholic beverage code and rules that are relevant to you. If violations are realized, ensure you know why so you can comply in the future. Don't let us leave if we've issued you a warning for something without knowing exactly what that warning was for, so that way you can know what to plan for in the future, know where an error was made, so we can have that fixed and you can regain compliance with us. Resolve any questions or issues you have before your business is up for an audit. Call your local TABC office. TABC is always a resource. I have permittees that call me on a pretty constant basis with questions, and we don't mind. We're here to be a resource for all our permittees. Please call, make sure that you ask us something ahead of time before we get out and begin the audit. We do conduct audits of your business to carry out its duty to ensure that the business is complying with the applicable laws and regulations. They're normally initiated with advance notice to your business, but some can be random. If they're complaint-based, we might not give you prior warning. When your business receives notice that it's going to be audited, be sure you know the scope of the audit and the required documents. If you do have any questions, normally a letter will have the contact information for your auditor who's going to be going out to that location. So make sure you call them ahead of time so you can start preparing all those records. View your audit as an opportunity to work directly with TABC to get your business on the path toward compliance. You can use this chance to have a personalized question and answer session about your business with that TABC auditor. And so that way you can make sure you answer any questions, whether they're related to the audit or not. Take the advantage of that situation where you have a TABC personnel at your location. If you have any questions at this time, you can ask the presenter through the chat feature, or you can send an email to stakeholder@tabc.texas.gov.